Welcome to 46 to 64 Car History, everyone. Today's video is an interview with Alan Duke, an original lowrider from the 1960s. Check this video out. He's got a lot of cool stories, and like and subscribe. Thank you. All right, so I guess let's just talk about the Bloody Mary one more time, just since we have this camera going now. So your first version of it was the blue version.
Two-tone blue enamel.
Two-tone blue enamel. And that's when you got the customizing work done.
That's when the antennas were done, the hydraulics were put in the front.
Yep. And then
the version after that would have been the candy blue and the pearl blue from Carl Darling.
Okay, got that. After that,
it was the paint, the lace paint, and the pearl and the candies and the purple colors.
Got that. Yep. And that was done by Carl Darling. Okay. And tell me a little bit about Carl. Was he a skilled painter and stuff like that?
Carl was a guy of all trades. He would do anything and anything. He would take his 56 Ford pickup truck that wasn't the big window.
Yep.
Cut the back window out of it himself in his garage. Wow. Find a big window someplace and install that big window in that truck, and it looked like it came from the factory.
Wow.
He was a guy that could do anything, and he never said no to nothing.
Wow.
Carl was something else.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And he passed away.
They found Carl dead in his shop sometime in the 70s. No one ever knew what happened to him. He was bound and gagged, and found him in his body shop on the floor. He'd been missing for 3 or 4 days. And
oh my gosh.
And his wife called the police to the shop there to see if he was there, and he was laying there, and he had been killed.
That's so sad.
No one ever found out who did it.
Oh my gosh.
He was a legend.
Where was his shop at?
Right over. Are you familiar with the Early Times have their picnics at every year over in Compton?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, right down the street is a place where they have little shops at. He had a shop right there.
Okay.
Right down where they have the picnic at for the Early Times.
Wow.
Right there.
Wow. Well, he did a really good job on your paint.
He was something else.
And he did the lace paint job version.
He did.
And then Walt Prey pinstriped that version as well.
I'll tell you a little story about Howard Gribble. One time in 1967, Howard Gribble bought a brand new Super Sport Impala. Bought it when it was green, had black interior in it.
Yep.
Well, he took it right over to Carl. And Carl says, this painted fuchsia metal flake.
Oh.
And so Howard's car is brand new.
Brand new.
Had hydraulics put in it. And he had chrome wheels and baby moons from Dave's Home of Chrome put on it. Took it to Carl's house. Carl started painting it. About 2 weeks later, Howard and I went to Harvey's Broiler. One night about midnight. We were driving the 64 Chevy.
Yep.
And I looked over, I said, hey, Howard, isn't that your car right there? And Carl and his wife were driving the car. It had been painted metal flake, but it had no clear on it. It looked like glitter.
Oh, my gosh.
And he took it out for a test run to drive it to see what it looked like. It was underneath all the lights of Harvey's Broiler.
Oh, so it was dancing.
Howard goes, that is my car. That's Carl driving it. So we parked right next to him, and Howard's really good friend Bones was in the back seat with his wife. We backed right in next to it, and Howard never got mad or nothing. And Carl said, hey, how you doing? And it was painted, and it was just looked like glitter was put on the car, because that's how it looks like unless you put clear on it.
Yeah, you have to bury it.
He hadn't got that far yet. He couldn't wait, so he took it out for a test drive.
Oh my gosh.
That's Carl for you. That's Carl. Howard never got mad or nothing.
Wow, that's an amazing
He didn't
story.
care. He thought it looked kind of nice.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the experience that we had with Carl Darling.
And he had a Ford, didn't he?
He had a 61 Ford, and he put the table lace on that too.
Okay.
In fact, it was so fresh that when he took it to Long Beach Sports Arena, he actually color sanded it and rubbed it out at the car show because he ran out of time at the house.
Oh my god!
He puts it in the show. He's out there color sanding it, and he rubbed it out at the show during people walking around looking at it.
Wow, I've seen the photos. That car was pretty cool.
It was. It had a bar grill in it and
French headlights.
And Carl did everything himself. He never paid for nothing.
Wow.
He did everything. He painted himself. He did everything himself.
So a true craftsman when it comes to cars.
He was.
That's amazing.
He was.
Carl Darling.
Carl Darling.
Wow.
His nickname was Scaly.
Scaly, okay.
Because when he had shoes, and when he would go out on a date with his wife and stuff like that, he didn't have the right color shoes to wear what he was wearing. He'd just spray his shoes with spray paint. So if he had a brown pair of pants on, he'd spray them black with spray paint, and next day he'd paint them black again and wear them everyday use.
Oh,
He was one of a kind.
oh my gosh,
I
man.
know. He was really a neat guy.
That's amazing. And did he grow up in the Wilmington?
Dominguez.
Dominguez, okay.
He grew up in Dominguez, yeah.
So Carl Darling. All right. So let's get back to the Bloody Mary. I'm going to kind of pick up where we left off. So let's talk about when Richard Madrigal got the car. What year was that when you handed it over to him to paint it?
Probably either late '68 or early '69.
Okay.
Yeah, he had it for about 3 months, 2 or 3 months.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then the paint job back then, he was pretty expensive.
Yeah, it was $1,067. My wife took $100 over to him every single week when we got paid.
Wow.
Until it was paid for. So it must have taken 3 months because we had to make the last payment before we picked it up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was perfection work.
And the year you had it painted by him, do you remember what year it was?
By Richard?
Yes.
That was early '69. So I probably took it to him in '68.
Okay.
Because we did 37 shows in that car, and won first prize in every one of them.
Wow. So you showed it in the Bloody Mary version from 1969.
68, 69.
It's from 68 and 69.
Right,
okay.
right.
And when you got it back from Richard, were you really impressed with the paint job on it?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I've never seen nothing like it in my life. Okay. He went all the way out.
Okay. Let's get into a little detail about that paint job.
Well, he first of all he blocked it for weeks.
Okay.
To make it straight.
Yep.
And he's such a perfectionist person that he would not put paint on any car unless it was straight as it would have no ripples in it whatsoever.
Right.
And since that '64 had been wrecked before he got it, it was all the bodywork was done by Cormier Chevrolet, but still it had to be blocked.
Right.
And straightened out to put a paint job that shiny on it.
Exactly.
And he did a beautiful job. He rubbed that thing out, the door jambs, the trunk inside, the hood under the hood, everything was all done very professionally.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And the colors for the base coat, what did he use for underneath the candy?
He used a gallon of clear lacquer and took a pint of candy red paint.
Yep.
Put a stick in there that you stir it with, and he stuck it in there and let it drip about 8 or 9 drips into the clear and stirred it up. And until I got the color I wanted, he had about 20 drops of paint in there. The rest was all clear. That's how he got the color.
Oh my gosh.
It was all clear, just about 10 drops of paint to make the color.
Wow. And you said underneath the red, he used, instead of using gold, what color did he use?
He sprayed the whole car in pearl white.
Wow.
Just to be different.
And yeah, and
I've always been different.
Yeah. Always have to have that little bit of a different touch.
Yeah, that gold, when you see a candy red over gold, you can see the gold underneath it. It looks beautiful. But I wanted to be different, so I put pearl white under it for a base coat. And it just did the job.
It makes it hit.
It made the job different. Yeah.
And pop
it
really
made
hard.
it pop. It made it pop, yeah.
And then for the top and side, the cove inserts on the car, what colors did he use there?
Silver metal flake, and then he put the black webbing in.
Okay, wow. It's amazing.
He has a way to do that with the gun. He makes the paint real thick and it just squirts it on there, and it goes out in blobs, sticks to the paint, then he puts clear over it and covers it up, and then that's what you get.
That's so cool.
He has a certain style of doing it.
So that was the Bloody Mary version. And who came up with the name?
Well, I don't know. I think it could have been Howard Gribble.
Okay.
I mean, it could have been. I don't remember.
Could have been you or Howard, maybe your wife. Or,
maybe Diana. It's hard to say. One of us said Bloody Mary, and so be it. And that's what happened.
And then after you had it painted, did you notice your car get a lot more awards and shows?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, it never lost. Yeah. It never lost.
Pretty legendary. You were one of the very early people to have lifts in a 64 Chevy and have it done in that custom car.
Back in those days, you could ride low, a cop would see you and turn around. By the time he got to you and pulled you over, you raised it up a little bit. He didn't know how you did it. He thought he was seeing things.
Yep, that's back
until they got smart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the way it was.
And I guess, let me ask you this question. Let's just talk about hydraulics for a second. Who was the first person or first car you ever saw with hydraulic lifts?
That's a good question. I imagine it was those 2 black guys that I met. They come over in a car. They had a 50-something Chevy,
Uh-huh.
maybe 55 Chevy, and they had it real low in the front. That's the first car I ever seen.
Wow.
And I had to have the same thing, so they took my 64, come back in 3 days, and I had hydraulics for $100.
Do you remember the guy's names?
His name was Otis.
Otis, okay.
Otis, and I just turned my car over to him.
Oh my God.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't know where he was taking it at.
Oh man.
Hey, I can say times are different back in those days. You trusted people.
Uh-huh.
They brought the car back, and it was going up and down. I was really happy with it, and from there on out, there it was.
Let me ask you this question. Was your pump located in the hood engine, or the engine compartment, or was it in the trunk?
It was in the trunk,
Okay.
right? Not actually in the trunk area, but beyond the trunk is a little ledge
Yes.
that they had there. It was bolted to that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and the reservoir was in the front of the car, but the pump was in the back.
Okay, got it.
And the only battery in that car was the one that started the engine in the front.
Okay, so it ran off the
It
engine.
ran off that battery.
Do you remember what kind of pump it was, or?
It was a Pally pump.
Okay.
It was called Pally.
So from Pally Supply Company.
Exactly. It was a Pally, yeah.
So it probably was like an
It
aircraft.
lasted me all the years I owned the car, so I guess it was a pretty strong pump.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you remember the cylinders you put in the rear?
They were 8-inch cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
It would only raise 8 inches, so you could have it real low, but it couldn't have it real high.
Okay.
The hydraulics of today, they have stilts. I mean, 3 feet tall.
Yeah, it's like almost like a performance hydraulics.
But back in the day, they had 6 or 7 inch stilts like shocks. It only went up stock height, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, they go up to the moon and back.
Right. Your days were more about being low to the ground, low and slow.
Exactly.
My quick question for you: let's talk about your exhaust tips on your car.
My what?
The exhaust tips, your Bellflower exhaust tips.
One day, someone said something to me. The pipes weren't very loud. I said, "Well, I don't want to get no ticket. I already had my share of tickets."
Oh yeah.
And each ticket cost like $37.50. I mean, in those days, that was a lot of money.
That was.
So one day, I'm hearing all these people saying, "Oh, your pipes need to be louder. You need to be heard when you go down the road."
Mm-hmm.
You know how stupid we are when we're young, right? So I took it to Gene's Muffler Shop on Lakewood Boulevard, and I had glass backs put on it, and we had the Bellflowers put on the back, tucked underneath, like different than other cars were.
Yes, it was definitely different. Most people put them on the side.
It was different.
You tucked yours directly underneath.
Yeah.
Wow.
That set a new trend, I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty much. No one ran it like that.
No.
I didn't think I've seen very many cars like that. So.
Howard was the first one to really like it.
Yeah, Howard has that eye, man.
Howard's
really
got the eye. He's got the eye.
All right. So we talked about the exhaust. We talked about the blue version of your car, the lace paint version, and we talked about the beginnings of the Bloody Mary. Let's talk about some of your favorite memories in that car. What's your favorite memory of the Bloody Mary?
Well, that's a good question because we took it everywhere, and there was one night, Diane and I, my wife and I, we went to Hawthorne A&W, and we were on our way home on Hawthorne Boulevard, and 55 Chevy beside us.
Yeah.
They were trying to hijack us.
Oh wow.
And of course, she was pretty scared, you know.
Yeah.
And every time I pulled the stoplight, they would stay behind me in case I turned.
Yeah.
And so finally, they kept getting beside me, getting real close to me. They just want to pull over and look at the car.
Yeah.
Well, I knew better.
Yeah.
So pretty soon, I had an eighth of a tank of gas. I was running out of gas, and I wasn't anywhere near the freeway. So what I did was these two surfer guys were in a Woody. And I pulled beside them. I said, "Hey, I got these guys after me." I said, "How about pull over and help me? We'll take care of them."
Yeah.
And I told her it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I pulled over. These guys pulled over, had my back, and all the guys in the car had took off.
Oh man.
That was the memory that to this day it was the scariest memory.
That's pretty scary.
There was and they, who knows what they had in mind.
Yeah.
Who knows what they had in mind.
Right, exactly.
But you couldn't run from them. I was almost out of gas, and the best we do was just pull over and fight them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was my motto, you know. These guys helped me, and I tried to take $20, and they wouldn't take my $20.
Oh
They said,
man.
man, anytime you got help, I'm glad you called us. I said, you guys are great. I'd like to
Yeah.
know this day who they are.
The surfer guys, huh?
Surfer guys had long
Wow.
hair, driving a Woody.
And this was by the A and you were cruising home from the A&W.
We were just pulling out of the A&W, and at the freeway was a long ways away.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, I never went anywhere without over a half tank of gas.
Yes, you don't want to be caught.
You live and learn.
Yes, I've noticed that in life that you learn from situations and you have to
And there was
move forward.
one time when we were at Harvey's Broiler, Howard and I got 2 tickets in one night by the same cop being too low.
Oh my gosh!
If you call that a memory, that's a disaster.
That was in Bloody Mary?
That was in the Bloody Mary, yeah.
What year was that? You think?
Early '69.
Okay, so it was in its red candy paint
It was in its red paint job, yeah.
And
yeah, he got me about 10 o'clock at night, and I had it too low, and he wrote me a ticket for unsafe suspension.
Oh man!
And he said, take it home. And so I waited 2 hours, went back to Harvey's and had a soda and a hamburger and stuff. Figured at midnight he's got to be off the shift. He's got to be gone. Went back around again, and he was sitting at the gas station. He got me again.
Oh my gosh!
Wrote me another ticket, and he said, if I see you again, I will impound the car.
So he knew about the hydraulics.
What do you do about the hydraulics?
And by '69, hydraulics were pretty popular in the Downey area.
Downey is still a bad place to take a custom car to this day.
Oh wow!
I mean, and they just don't like loud cars and lowered cars. They just think they're bad people. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Man.
But I had 2 tickets in one night in Downey. I had plenty of tickets before that, but never 2 in one night.
So that must have been a Firestone Boulevard you got pulled over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, the cars stick out like a sore thumb. And when you have hydraulics, you're not going to ride around being real high. You want it low. You want to scrape the ground.
Exactly.
And that's what they're for.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I got caught and had to pay the fines all the time, stuff like that.
Jeez.
They never took my license or nothing. In those days, that wasn't against your license.
Right.
Just paid the fine and go back on the road again.
Yep. Pay the ticket and keep it moving.
They figured they'd take all your money where you couldn't do nothing else, and that was their model, you know?
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's weird.
So I have another question. Let's talk about what happened to the Bloody Mary. What year did you part ways with the car?
In 1969 late, I decided I wanted to get going to hot rods.
Okay.
I didn't want the lowrider at that time anymore. I'd had enough of it, and they were trying to steal the car, this and that, and I just wanted something different.
Yeah.
So I went to a car show and put on there for sale or trade.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon I got a phone call from somebody in the valley. I think these people owned a rubbish company of some sort. If I can remember directly, they owned a rubbish company, a city dump.
Okay.
And they came out and they had this T-bucket. It was orange. And Dinah says, what are you going to do with that ugly thing? I traded straight across.
Straight across.
I traded. And she thought I was crazy.
Oh, man.
And I took that car and tore it down and built it to that beautiful black one there.
Yes.
And quadrupled my money. And we drove that car, 60,000 miles.
60,000
we drove that car 60,000 miles. We took it everywhere.
Were you in a car club with a T-bucket? Or
no, we never were. The early times, all those people asked us to join, but we never. I didn't want to go to the meetings all the time because I worked some different hours, and I couldn't. If you don't make the meetings, they won't let you in.
Right, exactly.
So I never joined any clubs. I just knew everybody.
Yeah, you were just cool and neutral with everyone. That's awesome.
That's right. So we had that car in many versions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the black one being the last version. That's when James Arness, Matt Dillon bought it
from Gunsmoke. Wow,
from Gunsmoke.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And tell the story about how he purchased it. You kind of told me a little bit.
Well, what happened was he told me to bring it to Hollywood. The address was 616 Sunset Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, how am I going to get home? It was late at night.
Yeah.
So we put it on my buddy's trailer, took it up there, and we're in an underground parking of a studio.
Mm-hmm.
I knocked on the door. It was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and he come out. Mm-hmm. Big old guy, about 6'5", big old guy.
Wow.
And he had his Cadillac limousine parked under there. He goes, let's get in my office and we'll talk business. I was okay.
Uh-huh.
So we get back to his limousine.
Yeah.
And he's starting to write me a check for $10,000.
Wow.
I said, no, wait. I want cash. Well, I don't have that kind of cash on me. I said, then you don't get the car. We go to the bank tomorrow morning. I'll meet you at the bank, and we'll do a swap. I want the car tonight. I said, then reach in your pocket and give me $10,000.
Oh my God.
You know, he's a big movie star. You know, you don't talk to these people that way. And he says, my check's good. I said, you may be a multi-millionaire, but I am not. And once you take the car, all the horsepower it's got, you wrap it around a pole, this check's no good. And he says, that's not going to happen. I said, no, because you're not getting the car unless you give me cash.
Right.
So after arguing back and forth, he said, I don't want your car then. I said, fine. So we get ready to leave. I walked away. He called me back.
Okay.
He says, I want that car tonight. What can we do? I said, it's almost midnight. And tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, it'll be at the bank and you can have the car. I want it now. So I thought, man, I don't want to blow a sale. That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I got a piece of paper, wrote down there, I, Alan Duke, sold to so-and-so for $10,000, you know, this and that. And I said, he signed it, I signed it. We had 2 copies.
Yeah.
And I didn't give him the registration. I didn't give him the pink slip or nothing. I kept it.
Oh
Next morning, we met at the bank, and he was like 30 minutes late getting there. And he walked in the bank and says, give this guy $10,000 out of my account. He was really cruel and mean, you know. And I said, no, I changed my mind. I want a cashier's check. Got the cashier's check. He walked out the door, got in the tea bucket, drove away. We never saw him again.
Wow.
Never saw him again.
Wow. So that car went to Hollywood. It went to Hollywood.
It went someplace in Hollywood, but I don't know what happened to it. We never saw it at a show, on magazines, on the street, anywhere.
And that was the tea bucket you traded straight across for the Bloody Mary.
Well, yeah, it was, but that's not how the tea bucket looked when I got it.
You did a bunch of different stuff.
Exactly. I tore it completely down, took the body off, took the frames, put it up against the wall, had it painted, changed the motor, changed the transmission, put a Jaguar end in the back. I did all that stuff on myself, you know.
And this would have been in the early 1970s?
That would have been in '69. We started doing it.
Oh, so not even the early 70s, right at the...
See, back then, tea buckets were really popular.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we didn't care about our hair being blown back then. We went to Hollywood. We went to New Year's Eve on Colorado Boulevard one night.
Okay, in Pasadena.
We got there at midnight, and it was cold. I mean, it must have been 32, 33 degrees.
Yep.
We're in a tea bucket with no windows.
Oh, man.
And we went down Colorado Boulevard. They were blowing horns and all that kind of stuff. And we started heading home about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, my God.
And you know how far that is because you know where it's at.
Yeah.
We get on that freeway going like this. We were so cold and the wind was blowing. It's 32 degrees. And we lucky to get at home without freezing to death.
Oh, my gosh. You had to take...
Oh, it was so bad. I can't tell you how shivering we were.
Oh, man.
After that, Diana says, I want a closed car from now on with windows and air conditioning.
Yep.
So after that, we started different type of cars.
Wow.
With windows.
So yeah, that tea bucket was just hardcore, super cold.
But you were young and it didn't matter at first. But that night, you're not supposed to be out at 1 o'clock in the morning on 32-degree days.
No way.
But that's where we were. So we drove the heck out of that car.
Yeah, it seems like you drove all your cars.
We did.
All your cars you drove.
That's what they were for.
Yep.
That's what they were for.
So no trailer queen here with you.
Never been on a trailer. Only one time on a trailer was when I took that tea bucket to sell it, and I trailered it up there.
Wow.
No, never been on a trailer. No.
That's amazing.
No, it's just driven to and from.
Okay. Wow. All right.
It should be.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. But let's talk about the story of what eventually happened to the Bloody Mary after you traded it. So you traded it, and then
once I traded it, probably a year had gone by, maybe a little bit longer. And I told you my buddy Danny from Wilmington. He had bought Howard's Riviera.
Okay.
And he was happy with that, but then all of a sudden he was talking and probably said, I wonder if the people who owned the Bloody Mary would trade straight across for the Riviera.
Yeah.
He drove it up to the valley. They were in the valley someplace and found them.
Okay.
And they traded straight across. He brought the Bloody Mary back to Wilmington. Drove it every day for an everyday car. He didn't garage it. He didn't do anything. He didn't have a garage.
Wow.
He drove it every day, him and his wife.
Okay.
And probably after a year or two of owning it, they decided to get rid of it. And they sold it to a guy in Wilmington. His name was Rick. That's all. I don't know his last name. but he had it for a few years, and I guess the car wouldn't start, so he just had it in his garage.
Right.
And my mother told me one day, Ellen, your car's at the end of the block. I said, Mom, it can't be. It's been gone for years.
Oh my gosh.
Don't tell me it's your car. So I go down and knock on the door.
Uh-huh.
And Rick comes out, and Rick says, I said, you have a 64 Chevy in the garage? Might be for sale. He goes, yeah, I do. Went down there, and there it was. The Bloody Mary was in the garage.
Wow.
It had about a 1/4 inch of dust on it. It had changed colors. It was so dusty and dirty.
Oh my gosh.
Hadn't been licensed in 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And I said, so why aren't you driving it? He goes, well, it wouldn't start, and I don't know nothing about cars, and I just parked it.
Oh
So I opened the hood, and I saw where the battery was corroded, and that's why it wouldn't start. I didn't say nothing. Offered him $125 for it, and he took it. It was a joke when I said that.
oh man.
I took it. I put a pair of vice grips on both cables, put them together, WD-40 on the carburetor, pumped it up, fired it up, and drove it home.
Oh my gosh, man.
And eventually I sold it to a guy named Louis Lozano
Uh-huh.
in Wilmington for $1,200.
And then it
That was
hasn't
the
been
last time I saw it.
hasn't been seen since.
No.
What year did you sell it to Lewis?
Probably around 1973. About 1973 probably.
Wow. So you had
Maybe early 74.
so 69 you sold it,
Mhm.
and then it laid dormant for a little while after the
Well,
first
here's the kicker.
Yeah.
When I bought it for $125 back, it was still in my name.
Oh my god.
He gave me the registration, the pink slip. It was still in my name.
I've heard of that before. That is a
you know
story I've
what?
heard before.
It was still in my name.
That's crazy.
A shocker, huh?
That's a shocker.
Yeah, that car
So
had a lot of history behind it. A whole lot of history behind it.
yeah, it's legendary. It's a legendary car, and I think when people think of, the top 10 most famous 64 Impalas ever built, yours is in that conversation.
Yeah, just a miracle how famous it became. And then in 1970 we moved to Lakewood here.
Mm-hmm.
After that we left Wilmington, and over here in Lakewood the people are a little more naive or whatever they are,
Uh-huh.
and they didn't know nothing about the car like that.
Right.
It's just times are different. Different cities have different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Now Lakewood's booming with hot rods.
Oh yeah.
Lakewood is booming. I mean, no matter where you go, everyone has a hot rod.
Yeah, there's car culture everywhere around
Oh
here.
yeah. I'm surprised some of them didn't come by here right now while we're here today, because I didn't tell no one about you. So these guys go all over this place all the time, all the time.
That's so cool.
Oh, it is, yeah.
So back to the Bloody Mary, we're talking about it basically went missing in around 1973. How many first place trophies did you get with that car?
37.
37 first place trophies. Wow. We're talking about this a little earlier. And who did the interior on your car?
Erickson's Top Shop did it. They used
Okay.
to be down on Avalon, and I think it was C Street or D Street or something.
Uh-huh.
And at the very end of Avalon Boulevard, going down towards where Catalina Terminal used to be.
Okay. And then what did he do the interior? What color and what style?
Pearl white diamond tuck.
Okay.
And it was done in vinyl.
Final. Wow. And it
And
was
then-
kind of an off-white color? Or?
It was an off-white color. It wasn't real bright white. It wasn't yellow. It was just a pure pearl color. It was easier to clean, easier to do stuff with, and you have a white interior. You can imagine how that would look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a
But it
little
was pearl white, and I kind of liked it at the time. It was different. I thought, well, it'll go with what I'm going to do, and it did.
That's amazing.
It made the car.
It did, especially contrast with that candy red.
Yeah, it had an ARC 14 record player under the dash. It had Vibrasonic. It had a light bar under there. Had all that stuff in the car.
Yeah.
when
You
I
had a
got rid of
custom
it.
steering wheel too, as well.
It did.
Yeah.
I got that from Moon Eyes.
Oh, so Moon Eye steering
Moon
wheel.
Eyes was around back then too, and I got that steering wheel from Moon Eyes.
They still make that steering wheel today.
They do. In fact, Howard Gribble has one in his '64 Chevy.
That's amazing. Okay, so I guess the question for you, since you're from that era, you're from that '60s era, what were people calling that type of car at that time? Were they calling it a custom car or a short?
I think they just called it a lowrider.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, some people use the word short.
Yeah.
Where's your short at, or whatever. But unless you knew that type of language, you wouldn't know what they're talking about. Most people just called it a lowrider.
Right.
Yeah, or a custom, whatever. That's how it was. It hasn't changed much.
No, it hasn't. And I noticed in your era, especially your era like San Pedro, Wilmington, Torrance, that type of car was pretty popular.
Everybody had one.
Yeah, with the hydraulic lifts.
Everybody had one.
And you know, I feel like that in that 60s era was a really cool transitional time from when, you know, the 50s customs with the chop tops and stuff. The era you were in was more custom paint, hydraulic lifts, chromed wheels, and more the lowrider style. So,
I don't know how that got in my like list. It's just the way it was, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, you was either a surfer or a hoe daddy.
Okay.
That's what you were in school. You was a surfer or you was a hoe daddy.
Okay.
And that probably hasn't changed either throughout the years.
Yeah. So there was a big surfing culture in the era you.
There was. Everybody had woodies and stuff like that, long hair, surfboards hanging out their cars. But I always liked the classy lowered car. It's just I don't leave nothing alone.
Yeah, no, I can tell. Even down to your house, it's custom, man.
Well, you know what? I just can't leave nothing alone.
I'm the same way. I'm a tinkerer too, man.
It's not made to leave. It should be made custom when you buy it.
I feel like that too.
You know, that's the way it is. In 1991, we bought a 91 Silverado Chevy black.
Okay.
And before I brought it home, I had them lower it, paint the front end and the grill all black, put a rolled pan on the back and painted that black, custom wheels, and I brought it home 5 days after I bought it, and it was delivered to be full custom.
That's amazing.
I took it over to Tom Rodriguez. He put a candy green flint job on it.
Oh, that's nice.
Over the black.
Yeah.
And I drove the thing for 10 years. It was a beautiful car, beautiful truck.
That's awesome. That's my favorite generation Chevy pickup.
It was my daily driver for 10 years. And I wanted to be different. Like I told you before, I didn't put orange and yellow flames on it. I put candy green flames over the black.
That's so cool.
And everybody said, man, that's not going to look right, but it looked right.
Yes, I've seen a photo of it in your collection. It looked definitely right.
It looked right, and it didn't just look at you and look at that. It was there, but you had to look for it.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was a great truck, yeah.
Every one of your cars and every one of your motorcycles and everything has a nice touch to it.
No, everyone's different though. I mean, I had to have changes in everything that we had. I always make different changes. Once you did it once, you don't want to do it again. You do something different next time.
Oh my gosh.
That's my motto. Motto. What do you want to call it?
It's the motto, yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about A&W root beer, the stand.
All right.
I've heard stories about A&W. That was a very hot spot for these cars back in the day. Tell me about a typical night, what it would look like, what kind of cars would be there.
In Wilmington, where we came from, on PCH and Avalon, there was an A&W there. That would have been sometime around 1962. And you would pull in there, and they had car hop service.
Yep.
And you would get an ice. The mugs were kept in a freezer.
Yep.
You wouldn't just get a regular glass. It was a mug that said A&W on it, and they were a nickel and a dime.
Okay.
A nickel for a small one, dime for a large one.
Right.
Like a mug of beer, it would be a root beer.
Yep.
1 dime. Cars galore all the time in there, getting hamburgers and root beers. And I don't know why they don't have it to this day, because they were so beautiful. Then they had the one in Hawthorne Boulevard that was even bigger.
Okay.
And they got rid of the one in Wilmington. After a while, it just became a market or something, you know.
So in your early days, in your early cruising days, that was a hot spot, A&W.
Well, it was, yeah.
So were there custom cars there, hot rods? What type of cars would be there?
Well, in those days, that's when the 62 409 Chevys came out.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys in Wilmington had 409 Chevys.
Oh, wow.
Dual quad 4-speed positive traction, just like the record says.
Yep.
409.
Yep.
And they were running around town, and they were a factory hot rod that would do 110 1/4 mile from the factory.
Oh my gosh,
man. They were fast.
So there were hot rod cars there?
Oh yeah, there was 32s, 34s then. The Vulcans were in Wilmington at the time. The Vulcans still exist today, but they're all 90 years old. But
the car club.
They still get together.
Yeah, there's also the Wilmington Pharaohs.
The Pharaohs were always there.
And then there was another car club called, well, not the Pharaohs. There's another one. I can't think of it.
They were around.
The Road Kings.
The Road Kings. In fact, I got a picture on my phone the other day. Someone said, "Hey, do you know these guys? They have Road King jackets on." That was before my time.
That's old school stuff.
That's before my time.
That's back in the days when there was a thing called the ACCLB.
We see the Lions Drag Ship was over on 223rd Street, and no matter where you lived, on Saturdays you would hear the thundering dragsters
That's
It would just
awesome.
echo the noise in the air. You'd open the door and you could hear the drag taking off. And that was part of life when you lived in Wilmington or Long Beach or Dominguez or Compton or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There, every Saturday night, Lions Drag Strip had drag races, and that's all you heard in the air from 3 o'clock on till 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
That's how it used to be.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
So basically, car culture was just everywhere down there.
We back in probably maybe 1969, my wife and I bought a 58 Chevy with some kid.
Okay.
He was going to move to Arkansas, and he had a 58 Chevy with a 396 Chevy in it, 4-speed, and his parents wouldn't let him take him. He was only 17.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up buying the car for a couple $100
Oh my.
because he couldn't take it with him, and they were leaving, and I wasn't going to give any more than that for it.
Right.
We drove that thing and got in a ton of drag races. I never lost. And on Wednesday nights, our kids are real small then. We took it to Lions Drag Strip, and you could race anybody you wanted at Lions Drag Strip on Wednesday nights.
That's awesome.
I turned 108, 109 with that car. It was an everyday driver.
Oh my god.
And we drove it around like that with it, like that.
Yeah.
And it was he did a beautiful car building that car. It had American mags on it. It was dark green.
That's...
Bought it for $200 because he was leaving the state and he couldn't take it with him.
What a car! Was that an Impala or
it was a
Biscayne?
It was a Bel Air.
Oh, Bel Air. Okay.
So after that, after we had it for about 6 months and going through all the gas it went through, a couple sailors from Long Beach wanted to buy it. I said $800. They bought it, and I never saw it again.
Wow. Wow, what a story on that one. That's a cool car. I didn't even know you had that one.
It had headers and everything on it. It was cool. I don't
Family
have no
car, but
I don't have no pictures of it, but it was an amazing car.
A family car, but a drag racing car at the same time.
It was a car you could just power shift it, burn rubber with it. It never broke. It never did anything. The kid did a beautiful job when he built it.
That's awesome.
He was so sick that cried that when he went to Arkansas with his parents, he couldn't. They wouldn't let him take the car with him.
That's so sad.
I was sad, and I just happened to be there with $200, and the car was worth a lot more than that.
Talk about being in the right place.
And he gave it to me for $200, and I felt bad for him, but I said either take my $200 or take the car to Arkansas.
Yeah.
So he had no choice. He gave it to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a car. It
was a good car.
So let's talk about a couple more cars of yours, since we've already covered the Bloody Mary. We covered your first T. Let's talk about your 39 Ford.
The 39 Ford. One day I decided I needed a car to drive every day, but I didn't want a regular type car.
Okay.
I always said different, right?
Yeah.
So this guy in Dominguez named Larry Gates had this 39 Ford, and he owned it for many, many years. It had a 283 Chevy in it.
Got it.
It had a 39 transmission in it, and it was silver. So I bought it for $900, made payments to him. I gave him $300 a month for 3 months.
Yep.
And made payments on it. And I brought the car home, and every weekend my wife and I would be going someplace, and that transmission just didn't adapt to that Chevy motor. It had too much torque, and it would blow the first gear out of the transmission.
Oh,
even if you weren't doing nothing wrong, the stick would come flying back.
Got it.
And I got tired of changing the transmissions all the time. Every weekend it took me 4 or 5 hours to do that and change that transmission. So finally one day, I met a guy that would put a 57 Chevy Ren in the back of it and put a Power Glide transmission in it.
Yep.
And we never had another bit of problem with it. We drove it for 7 or 8 years.
That's amazing.
And I had it painted blue.
Yep.
And then I had it flamed by Walt Prey.
Walt Prey.
And my wife drove that car every single day. It sit out front. It didn't go in the garage or nothing. It was an everyday driver.
Walt Prey paint job. That was a wild paint job.
And one day we're down at the Dust Bowl in Long Beach at a swap meet on a Saturday. And we saw this 26 tall T coupe, two-tone brown, had wire wheels and a 327 in it. I just had to have that car.
Oh man.
And so it was for sale.
Yep.
And I got a hold of the guy and we talked, and I tried to trade straight across. He said no. So I gave him $600 and the 39 for that 26 tall T.
Oh man.
And we brought that tall T home, and that was our new car.
Did you enjoy the tall T?
Oh yeah, we should have never sold that car. Some guy came along with $3,000, and he owned it. R26 was the same color as John B. Terrace.
That's what I was thinking.
Except ours was a coupe, and it had beefier leather inside of it.
Oh,
it had a 327 in it. It drove like $1 million.
Oh man!
And when some guy comes along with $3,000 and you're making house payments and stuff, you realize that's a lot of money. and I didn't have that much money in the other car, so I sold it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was another one you had. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's the story of the 39. That's awesome.
Well, the 39, they ended the 39 theory. I mean, we had it for 6 or 7 years or longer, and we drove the heck out of that car down Whittier Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
We must have cruised Whittier Boulevard in the late 60s more than anybody on weekends. We took our kids with us and everything.
That's so cool.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, that's what you did.
So you're 39. Let's talk about the flame pattern for a second. Walper did some unique patterns in that flame. What did he exactly do in your mind?
I just told Walt to flame it. I didn't know he had a certain style of his own. I was young.
Okay.
And that was Walt's style there. He didn't do the long, skinny tips like they do in the 50s.
Uh-huh.
That wasn't his style. He did his own style. He put the rainbow, the paint going this way in the flame.
The paint fades.
Instead of going like this, yeah.
Yeah, he put the vertical paint fades.
That was his style. And Walt had his own style when it came to lowriders. He was a legend in the lowrider world, as you know.
Yes, yes.
And he probably passed, what, 4 or 5 years ago or longer?
Not too long ago, pretty recent years. But yeah, over the years, he went from being a custom painter to becoming a man of legend because of cars like the Gypsy
See, I
Rose
never saw him again after he pinstriped the 64 Chevy. I never saw him in person again until he flamed the 39. After that, I never saw him again at all.
The 39, did you have to drive it up to the San Fernando Valley?
Van Nuys, yeah.
Van Nuys?
I drove with the Van Nuys. He flamed it, had it for about a week.
Okay, got it.
Charged me $125 to flame it.
Wow.
In pinstripe. He did pinstripe on the trunk, too.
That's amazing.
$125. Now it'd probably cost you $5,000.
Yeah, in that car you ran some custom chrome wheels on.
Yeah, because they were the way to go. Back in the day, they weren't that expensive. They looked good,
right? And
they were in style.
That looked really good. You had like baby moons on that, I think, as well.
Right.
Super clean car.
Yeah, they've always been nice. Even back in the 40s, they used chrome wheels and hubcaps, so they were nice.
Yeah, very clean car. And then one last car I think I want to talk about before I want to jump into some of your motorcycles is the Phaeton Touring, or the one you got from Richard Graves. Let's talk about that car for a second.
As I told you, I had just sold the T-Bucket, the black one, the James Arness.
Yep.
And had a pocket full of money.
Yep.
And Richard was driving down Woodruff here the next day on Sunday. On Sunday morning, I saw it. I ran out and drove to his house. And bought it right there on the spot.
Wow. And when you got it from him, was it fully painted, or was it? It was
painted and drivable, but it didn't have a top on it. And Richard wasn't going to put a top on it.
Yeah.
But when I got it, I put a radio in it and some other stuff.
Yeah.
And I changed some things around on it, and then I put a top on it.
Okay.
And Richard Graves is the one who built the bows for that top.
Oh wow.
He's a masterpiece. Yeah. He built the bows out of mahogany wood.
Oh wow.
And I took it and had a top put on by Don's Trim Shop that used to be in Downey.
Okay.
All canvas.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the flames on that were done by Dennis Rickless?
It was.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
Incredible. Let's talk about the motor in that car for a second. You were telling
Richard Graves bought that engine out of a wrecked Pinto in a junkyard. The car was brand new and it got wrecked, and Richard bought the engine out of that car and stuck it in there, and he did his custom exhaust on it and put side draft Webers on it and made it look like it did. And it got 50 miles a gallon, and it was plenty fast too.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was really something.
And back in that era, you were telling me that was during the gas crisis.
That was during the gas crisis, right?
So to have a fuel-efficient hot rod was pretty rare.
Yeah, but to spend that kind of money for a car with a 4-cylinder it just wasn't practical. Because Richard had the ingenious mind to build one with a 4-cylinder in it. Jeez, and he did a good job.
That's amazing.
I mean, I got the glory for it because I bought it. They photographed it after I owned it. But still, who would put a 4-cylinder in a hot rod back then? They do it nowadays because it's cool.
Yeah.
But not back then.
No, back then it was different.
Especially a Pinto motor.
Yeah, that was a pretty unique car back then. All right, so let's talk about your daily driver, 4-door Chevy, the one with the flames.
I had a 54 Chevy that was a 4-door, and I had it primered in two-tone purple.
Okay.
That was my driver at the time.
Yes.
And one of my friends in Wilmington didn't have a car, and one day I just felt sorry for him, so I gave him my 54 Chevy. And I went and bought another 54 Chevy for myself. It was that it was that 4-door,
Yes.
but it wasn't black yet.
Okay.
So I drove it around for a while and put pipes and stuff on it.
Yep.
Put Astro Supremes on it,
Yep.
white walls.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I decided to paint it black.
Yep.
So I took it to Earl Shive and that picked it in by 8 and picked it up at 4. It was black when I got it home.
Wow.
Drove it around for about a month and Gribble says, let's flame it. I said, okay. Pulled it in the garage, and Saturday and Sunday we taped it and painted it and pulled it out of the garage Sunday night and took it down Avalon Boulevard. It was flamed on the top, the trunk, the hood, the sides. A wild flame job. Done in yellows, reds, and oranges.
Yeah, I was about to say multicolored.
It was wild. It was ahead of its time, way ahead of its time.
Yeah, for sure.
And drove that around for a long, long time. And then I can't remember what happened to it. I probably sold it or something after a while, you know.
But
it was a wild car.
And that was a co-collaboration with you and Howard Gribble. That's awesome.
He was always involved in everything I did, you know.
Uh-huh.
Seems like it anyway.
Always had a camera around his neck.
Always had a camera around his neck. It doesn't matter where we went, the camera was around his neck. And he had to pay a fortune in those days to get all the film developed.
Yeah, it was different.
He's always been that way until he come up with the phone and computers and stuff. They didn't have computers back then.
No, it was all
didn't have anything.
Old school back then, or old technology.
Yeah, it's really something. We made that video. That was beautiful how we made that video.
Yeah, so let's talk about the video real quick with the Bloody Mary.
One day Howard comes over and he says, let's film the car going down Avalon Boulevard. I go, how are you going to do that? He says, I got an 8mm camera. I'm going to follow you in my Volkswagen. And you're going to go down beside me and you're going to make the car go up and down on the boulevard and I'm going to film it and we'll put it together. I said, well, who's going to pay for the ticket? He says, well, you ain't going to get a ticket. You know that. So we ended up going down Avalon Boulevard. I did anyway.
Yep.
And he's beside me in his Volkswagen and I'm shooting sparks out the bottom of the car because I had a skid plate welded to it so I wouldn't damage my oil pan. I have it all the way down and flames are coming on both sides because I was just bumping like this, you know, and Howard's filming it. And we went down Avalon Boulevard, and this 64 Chevy pulled right beside me on Opp Street in Avalon. Never forget it. They were from Torrance.
Okay.
Don't know these guys.
Yep.
Two-tone gray. It's in the video. You probably saw it.
Yep.
Well, he had hydraulics in the front, and at that time, he didn't know I had hydraulics. So he puts this down to show me off a little bit, and Howard's filming this. So what do? I just put the back down and went by him. He didn't have me in the back. So after that, he turned off and he didn't follow me no more.
Yeah, because that was a big thing back in the day.
It was a big deal. So instead of me putting it all the way down, I just put the back down to show him, I've got something you don't have, buddy. And he wasn't from town. He was from Torrance.
Okay, so South Bay, yeah.
Yeah, so that was an accident that happened during the filming of the video. He just happened to be there and showed me off and dropped his hydraulics down in the front. I thought, you can't do that to me. Put the back down, friend, all the way up, and went down like this. And Howard had that on film. There it is, right there in that video.
That's awesome. Talk about being at the right place at the right time.
It was, and then when Howard first made the video, the music in the background is Jimmy Reed, and Howard tried to put that on Facebook, and they wouldn't do it because he don't have the rights to Jimmy Reed's music.
The copyright claim,
Copyrights, and so he tried it 3 or 4 different times. After 3 or 4 times, it went through.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
We have it on there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
So talking about music, what kind of music were you listening to back in the day when you were cruising? What was some of your favorite artists or some of your favorite?
Well, just Jimmy Reed, Otis Redding. It sure wasn't Pat Boone, that's for sure.
So you were more like R&B, soul, like
yeah. Because
Motown
in a car like that, you got to have cool music, and it's just the way it has to be.
Yeah.
All music is good, actually. It's just back then you didn't have what you have today.
Yeah.
You had the 60s music, and that's all. In the 50s music, that's all you had.
Some of the greatest era of music.
Some of the, the Rolling Stones came out, and then Elvis Presley music came out, Ricky Nelson, all that good stuff was around back then. It was all fresh, brand new.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't recorded and played 50 years later.
That's amazing.
But the car had, like I said, I had a Princess telephone in it. And I would go down the road, I'd act like I'm talking on a telephone back in the 60s. Actually, it was hooked up to my radio, and I could hear my radio speaker through my phone.
That's so cool.
It looked like I had a telephone in the car shows. Just sit right there on my console. It looked pretty impressive. It was painted pearl white, just like my inside.
Color match?
Magical painted it, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was pearl white Princess telephone, and it was sitting right there, and you could actually hear the speaker. I hooked it up to the speaker.
That's so cool.
I know.
That's so cool. Did you have the organ speakers in the back window?
Oh no, that's not my style.
Yeah, that wasn't more your style.
That wasn't my style whatsoever. No.
Got it.
No, not that. No.
Okay.
I had a chrome bumper jack. I had black fur in the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
I had a gas can painted candy upper red. It said gas. And I had an oil can painted candy upper red. It said oil.
Amazing.
And when you go to car shows and open your trunk,
yeah,
the inside of the trunk was all rubbed out like the car. Magical did all that.
Oh, amazing.
So when you open the trunk, you get extra points. That's why I won first prize all the time.
Show points.
And my engine was always open and detailed, and I got points for that too.
Did you have chrome plating in your engine bay as well?
I did. I had a lot of chrome inside. The hood hinges and everything. It was just for extra points.
That's amazing.
And they mean a lot to me back then. Now they don't mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
But that's how it was.
What is your opinion on the impact that you and your car left on the car community? Do you think it's pretty crazy how popular it is and how popular you are for being?
I still don't believe it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how that thing can haunt me 55 years later and it's still around.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm going to see your car this weekend on the 18th at the Pink Motel
You're going to see
show.
the remake of
the remake of it, yes.
I drove that car we went over there, my wife and I went over there about 2 months ago to visit Howard. He's been in the same house since he was a little boy.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
He's in Torrance, yeah. He's lived there with his parents.
Uh-huh.
When they died, he still lives in the same house.
Wow.
And the Bloody Mary, he's got a really, really nice 32. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, Kid Deuce. That's his
just
nickname.
sits in the garage, been there for years. He doesn't take it out.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, nice hot rod.
It's a nice hot rod. Anyway, a couple months ago, I went by there with one of my buddies, and I drove the Bloody Mary while he filmed it. We were going to do a little video like we did with the original one.
Yeah.
And it just felt awkward to be in a car 55 years later doing the same thing I did 55 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I drove that car. It's a really amazing thing to see after he did that.
Yeah.
It's almost like it was yesterday already, and it was just yesterday when I got rid of it. It seemed like when he's around.
Did it bring back a lot of memories?
Oh,
seeing
yeah,
the recreation?
It was just one of those things that should have ended back in 1969, and it never has ended.
Yep.
You know how it is. It just keeps on going.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. These you kids coming up today weren't alive back then, but they admire the people who did that before they were born.
Yes.
I think that's what it's all narrows down to.
There's a lot of kids who love the old school, and that's me too as well. I'm in my early 30s.
I understand that, yeah. It's amazing how you can be that way because you weren't even around back then.
I study. We all, there's a few people like me in this community who really enjoy learning and studying the legends and the history of the car community of the past.
We were at the car show a couple of years ago, and we're walking with about 10 guys. I'm with all of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we're walking down to the promoter roaster show. There's millions of people there, right?
Yep.
And I'm walking down the aisle, and pretty soon this guy walks up, he's coming this way, I'm going this way. He goes, are you Alan Duke? I said, well, who wants to know? I don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
He says, you are Alan Duke. I thought you were dead. I said, I am Alan Duke, but I ain't dead. And he wanted to shake my hand. Wow. And these guys that were with me said, no matter where we go with you, he says, these guys want to come around and give you a kiss. It amazes me. Because to me, it's nothing. That what we did was nothing. It was just part of my life.
Yeah, it was part of the culture in Southern California.
It's a good thing I didn't rob a bank back then, because 50 years later, I still look the same, have the same sunglasses on the counter that I had in that car.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah.
You still got the same sunglasses you had back in the day?
Well, they're the same
style,
exactly.
Yeah.
And if I robbed the bank back in 1967 and I'm out here today, they can still identify me. I got the same hairdo.
Yeah, man. You still Alan Duke.
It is amazing, huh?
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Well,
might have a little color in the hair now, but I still got color in my hair, and it's amazing hairdo, same one.
Same one, man.
I don't change that much.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up most of the car stuff. Let's talk about some of your motorcycles. Let's talk about your first motorcycle you ever owned. My first one, I was 16, and this guy was going through Wilmington, and he had a for sale sign on a full dress hog. He wanted $250 for it, a 51 pan head. Yeah. Now, that's $250. It was a lot of money back then. So I just had to have that bike. Yeah. So I tracked him down, and I bought it, and I had never ridden a Harley before. I'd ridden Hondas and Suzuki's. Right.
but I never had a Harley.
Right.
So I took it for a test drive to see how I liked it, and I killed the motor at an intersection. And I thought you could start the thing by just cranking on it. Well, no, you have to put a Harley on a kickstand and kick it, because I only weighed 120 pounds.
Oh my god!
And when I first got on the starter, it kicked me over the handlebars. The bike fell over and broke my left ankle.
Oh my gosh!
Right there on the spot. Well, I never came back. He's looking for me. He went looking for me in his car. Telling me that I'm on the side of the road with a broken leg, and I bought the bike anyway. I bought the bike anyway, and after my leg healed up in 8-10 weeks, I started chopping it, and I chopped it myself in my garage and painted it myself and rode that thing for a long time.
Yep.
And finally, I sold it for $800.
Oh my gosh! So you got the bike in around 63?
62, 63, yeah.
And who did the flames on your bike?
Kelly.
Tom Kelly.
Tom Kelly.
Wow. And elaborate on the story about the gas and the drip and stuff like that.
Well, I took it to Kelly to put the flames on. He was in Compton at the time, and there was no such thing as Kelly and Son. The Son hadn't come around yet.
Right.
So he told me to be real careful going home. I said, yeah, I will be, don't worry. So on the way home, I misjudged the gas tank, and I ran out of gas. So I had to push it to a gas station, and I tried to be real careful putting that gas in there.
Yep.
But it dripped on my brand new flame job.
Oh, no.
And I was sick. So I took it right back to Tom right there on the spot, and at first he was a little mad because he had to do it again.
Yeah.
But then he laughed about it. It's just one of those things. And then after that, I let the paint dry for a week before I did anything to it.
Wow.
But that was the way it was, you know.
Amazing.
It was only 5 minutes old, and I dropped gas on the gas tank.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that it right there? Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, your wife was just showing me a photo of the gas tank. You look so cool on it, man, with your sunglasses and all that stuff.
Hey, I worked at a gas station in San Pedro at night, and I rode that thing to work every day on the Harbor Freeway, and came back to Wilmington on that day after I closed up the station at 10 o'clock at night. I rode it everywhere.
Yeah.
I know. I took my mother for a ride on it all the time. She loved it.
That's so cool.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You had a little sissy bar in the back of that, too.
I had a sissy bar in the back and everything, yeah.
Let's talk about your last motorcycle, the
57?
Yeah, the 57. That one's really cool.
The 57 came from a guy named Jeff Goodrich.
Okay.
And I wanted it really, really bad, and so I purchased it from Jeff, and it really wasn't all done yet.
Right.
When I got my hands on it, he used to have those big upsweeps going up there with big old tips on them, and they would shoot flames out on the freeway and stuff.
Yep.
Well, that was pretty cool, except when you rode the bike like that, that heat would come right up and get your body.
Yeah.
But they look cool.
Yeah. So
I took the exhaust off, and I put drag pipes on it that sounded really nice, and they were real close to the ground. So when you turn right, they would scrape on it. The bike was so low it would scrape the pipes on the ground, just making the right turn.
Wow.
And I changed all that, and I changed a lot of things on it. But it was painted pearl blue and candy blue, and the tank was molded to the frame.
Yep.
It's the type of bike they built back in the 50s and 60s where once you drop it, all that tank that's been molded, it's probably going to crack.
Exactly.
So you don't drop a bike like that.
Right. I think we're all set. Well, thank you, Alan.
Our pleasure.